to this week's version of the Yamhill Leadership Roundtable. We have with us at the moment Takesha Wydrow from Sheridan Chamber of Commerce. I'm Casey Kula, Yamhill County Commissioner. We have Al Bannon from Representative Congresswoman Bonamici's office. Welcome back. Good to see you. Back from All Things Transportation. We have Abhisha Stone from SEDCOR, Strategic Economic Development Partnership. We have Howie Harkema from Encompass Yamhill. Welcome, Howie. We have Mayor Linda Watkins from the city of Carleton. Hello. And we have Council President Stephanie Finley from the city of Newberg. It's good to see all of you. A lot has happened since the last time that we met, especially around coronavirus and vaccines. And in fact, we just got more guidance a few hours ago from the state around what they mean for what they intend businesses to do or not to do. And Joya Goodrum is with us. I'm not sure if she's quite ready, but I've asked Joya if she can share with us what businesses are doing, talking about what they're challenged by with the mask. The announcement from the CDC and then echoed by the governor last week that masks were not needed for people entering businesses who are vaccinated, and what that has looked like in the community, especially over the weekend. And Joy and I had the fortune to meet with a whole lot of other people. But since then, you've had the opportunity to talk to a lot more. So Joya, if you could let us know kind of what people are talking about, what are business struggling with, what have they found to be the best course of action?
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. So I did recently, just maybe an hour ago, send an email out to the membership. You probably got a copy of that email. I've had a lot of response. A lot of it not positive. There's a great concern on the side of business that they are now going to, and this is a quote from somebody who sent me this, the vaccine Gestapo. Yeah. So this is putting them in a very uncomfortable position, not to mention their employees who may have to say, you have to wear a mask in my store or in this business. And the reprisal or the retaliation that may come to that employee. There was a business on 3rd Street. Somebody came in and they were told, you must wear a mask when you walk in the door. This is the protocol in our business. And the guy just lit into this poor employee who is, making minimum wage, right? Trying to do their job and do the right thing. And just lit into this poor kid. And the owner came out and said, get out of my store. Don't ever talk to my staff like that again. And the problem is, it's great if the owner is there that day. What if they're not? So this is really causing a lot of concern for businesses. It's ambiguous. There's businesses should, but they don't have to. What does that mean? It's very ambiguous, and they're worried. This has been a really tough year, and it's hard enough right now trying to find employees. And then if someone's faced with abusive, language or behavior from a customer, what are they going to do? They're going to go, I'll see you later, I'm done, and walk out the door. And then the business has got to scramble and find staff again. This is not helping our businesses in their recovery. And I say recovery, when we talked with Jody the other week, she said we're still in response. Our businesses need to be thinking about recovery, and we need to be thinking about recovery because that's where we need to be, right? We want recovery. So I'm getting a lot of comments from our businesses that this is confusing to them. There are some businesses that are saying, you know what, if people are fully vaccinated, we're just going to let them go without a mask. So that's what some of them are doing. Others are saying we're going to continue going in, following the mask mandates. There are some of them, let's see, I've got tons of them. Let's see. The whole honor system idea. There's questions about HIPAA and ADA. Whether there's a violation of HIPAA or ADA. I don't think there is. From what I've been reading, I don't think there's a violation with those, but I could be misspeaking there, but I'm pretty certain there isn't a violation if you ask for that. You can get fake vaccination cards online. So if you've got a fake card, who's to say it's a real one? So there's lots of, God, this is a nightmare for businesses to try and manage. And so I'm just speaking from what I'm hearing from our members that this is not going to be good for them. And to tell everybody that you need to wear a mask now, and we were the mask, we were supposed to be the mask police at one time. That wasn't fair to businesses either. Now we have to be the vaccine police. I don't mean to be dramatic about that. Those are dramatic words. Just ensuring that it's a lot to put on a business to have to manage all of this and try to keep their business running. It would be, I think, better if the OHA could explain a little bit more about how they expect them to go about this. I understand protecting staff. I understand protecting customers. I also understand that we live in a country where people are free-spirited and free-minded, and they're kind of done with wearing masks. And so that's sort of where we are. That's the long and short of it. I'm going to put some things together, and Commissioner, I can send it to you. I can send it to you, Representative Gomberg, and I also will be sending this compilation of information directly to Oregon State Chamber, because they are going to be testifying tomorrow at this hearing that is happening.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for getting us started with that. I really appreciate it.
And we'll come. A better answer.
Yeah, no, we'll come back to it, but it's important to hear from businesses about the challenges with this, especially in light of the new guidance that didn't really clear things up by my reading of it. But Representative Gomberg, I know, has a short amount of time, and he's already written about this in his newsletter. So Representative Gomberg?
Well, I just wanted to ask Joya real quick, what hearing tomorrow? I'm so sorry.
It's a hearing with Representative Dexter.
Okay, so that would, okay.
Do you know which committee that is? I'm not really sure.
I'll check it out.
Okay, I'm sorry. I wish I knew specifically. I just got an email from Oregon State Chamber, and they said, we're meeting with Representative Dexter. There's a hearing. Okay. So I think it's on this whole...
I haven't heard about the hearing.
Oh, oops. Okay.
Well, thanks so much, Commissioner. And yeah, I've got to run in a couple of minutes. I think last week I was able to slide in for 5 minutes, listen and leave. Let's start with this. Tying our risk status to our vaccination levels, and now the new announcement from the CDC that masks are not required if you've been vaccinated. I want to treat that as good news. I want to treat that as clearly indicating some progress toward getting this whole thing behind us. But the details are just killing us. They're just killing us. And especially when the CDC comes out on a Thursday and says, oh, heck, if you've been vaccinated, you don't need to wear a mask. And there's no guidance. You talk about unclear guidance. There was no guidance. The state got caught completely off guard by this. And we're going into a weekend. I'm sure it was tough for you. Let me tell you, the coast was a nightmare as well. And if we're going to leave it to businesses to decide who comes in and doesn't based on whether or not they've been vaccinated, That's going to be tough for everybody, but it's going to land really hard on our smallest businesses that don't have a whole lot of staff, don't always have managers on hand, don't have a lot of backup. I'm picturing the gift shops that have one person at the cash register on a Friday afternoon, and how are they going to monitor all of this? I'm very, very troubled. You have heard me talk some months ago about legislation to provide some liability waivers for businesses that follow best practices. I co-sponsored that bill this time with Republican leader Drazen. It died in committee, but there are some procedural options. We're now talking about trying to revive it. And bring that back because you talk about somebody who gets a counterfeit vaccination card, comes into a store, somebody follows them into the store and gets sick. Excuse me, who are they going to sue? So we can talk a long time about the challenges of being the mask police and the ever-changing whipsaw of rules and regulations and how they land on our communities. I wanted to mention the fact that on Friday, the Ways and Means Committee voted out a $9.3 billion school package. That's 9.3 is kind of hard to wrap your head around, but it's huge. It's absolutely huge. It's the biggest school budget that we've ever passed. It's the number that our superintendents say they need if they're going to provide the education to our kids that they need and deserve. And I need to stress that as great as 9.3 sounds, we've already voted out an additional $250 million for summer programs to help kids get back on track. We've got the Measure 95 ballot measure that was passed that puts lottery dollars into CTE education. We've got the Student Success Act. So there's additional dollars on top of the 9.3 that really in total get us probably closer to 9.6, 9.7. I'm hopeful for our schools with that kind of support. And tomorrow we get our revenue forecast, which is bureaucratic language for certified smart people are going to tell us how much money we've got. The state economist is going to make a report. What are we looking at in income tax receipts, corporate tax receipts, lottery dollars? And once we know how much money we've got, then, then we know how much we can spend to balance our budget. We start moving our big agency budgets out, and then we know if we got money left for anything new. And what that really means is that we're starting to race toward the finish line of the 2021 session. So those are just a couple of highlights right now. Plenty of other stuff going on from legislation dealing with prevailing wage, hearings dealing with whether or not ODOT and our utilities are cutting down more trees in fire zones than they should have. My personal favorite this week was lane splitting, which allows you on a motorcycle, if the traffic is backed up, to go down the middle of the road instead of staying in your own lane. The bill passed. I voted against it. So,
but our other representative was a sponsor, wasn't he?
Yeah, he carried the bill. Yes. But, I think it was a bill written for big highways. It was written for I-5 and I-84. And I said, on my highways, the bill doesn't let you go around on the right or on the left. You have to go down the center. And I said, in my highways, you go into the coast or along the coast, the highways range from 2 lanes to 3 lanes to 4 lanes, back to 2 lanes, back to 3 lanes. Lane splitting doesn't work when the lanes are changing all the time. And I just worry that it's going to get more dangerous. But I don't know that the bill was worth as much time as I just spent talking about it.
Thank you, Representative Gomberg, for always your refreshing take on the legislature. It looks like Joya has a follow-up for you.
Yeah,
I do. Do you know where House Bill 3389 is, the one on unemployment insurance, and how that's coming along? And it passed the House, right? Or is it still in some committee?
Just give me 2 minutes.
Sure. Oh, thank you.
He only has 4, so.
Okay.
4 minutes.
I really appreciate.
Is that 2389 you said?
Yes, I could look it up. I just wondered if you knew off the top of your head. That's the one on unemployment insurance that does the look back for 20 years versus 10.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember where things are at, and now my computer's running slowly.
Oh, don't worry about it. It's okay. Not a worry. I just
real hard.
Thank you for all you do. I appreciate it.
Well, I've got my own bill that's being heard tomorrow dealing with overpayments of unemployment insurance. We've got a record number of people claiming unemployment benefits. We got a record number of brand new employees. We got a record number of new rules, which is for me is a recipe for a record number of mistakes. But what happens if the state pays you too much money? The current law says that the next time you're unemployed, we'll take it out of your benefits. I think that's a horrible practice. I mean, what it says is we made a mistake and we're going to take it back from you the next time you're out of work. It's the kind of kick them when you're down mentality, and I'm saying we should treat this debt the way we do any other debt and call you up and put together a payment plan, but help you repay the money while you're working instead of waiting until you're not working. So I talked long enough that I can tell you that on 2389, they had a couple of hearings back in March. Nothing is currently scheduled.
And it looks like Abisha Stone has a question for you too.
Hi, Abisha.
Hi, good to see you. I really just wanted to thank you for continuing to push forward the conversation about liability protection. Our manufacturing partners, right, hitting a Thursday with the CDC coming out with that announcement, coming into work, having employees show up in various states of preparedness, knowing that the weekend would also mean that OSHA wouldn't be issuing any rules to help them regulate that. I think that your example of kind of that grocery store scenario or restaurant scenario where somebody's giving a fake card is a good reminder to us about what our retail partners are faced with. And I want to remind everyone that our manufacturing partners have been trying also to manage this ongoing, and it's a staff to staff issue, right? And they know exactly where they spend the majority of their time each day. And so if there are any of those sort of things that are happening, being able to connect an outbreak to that place of employment is a lot easier to do, and therefore is more likely to result in these sorts of lawsuits. Yeah. Where I think all of those examples are fair and clear, I think that places of employment amongst employees have the higher concern for that actually happening. So I appreciate you continuing to move forward with that.
Well, we're trying to find a back door that we can slide it through. Thank you. All right. Well, look, everybody keep doing good things out there. Keep smiling behind your masks. I'm hoping that the end is in sight.
Thank you, Representative Gomberg.
You bet.
I would like to note that the updated guidance did, in my quick scan of it, did include a statement that nobody needs to be wearing masks outside, with some exceptions. So that is a change, right? Like, that seems like a significant thing that's following the data that the CDC noted about how unlikely it is to contract the virus outside. So I feel like that was a big win for lots of different groups of people in our community. And now that we're not under the Representative Gomberg's 10-minute time crunch, Joya, were you able to finish everything you wanted to get started with?
Oh gosh, I'm sure there's lots more comments here, so I'll continue reading through them as we talk. If I come across something, I will say that the healthcare industry, you still have to wear a mask in a hospital when you go to your doctor and places like that, and they will continue to require that. So you will continue to see that happening, and I would imagine our healthcare professionals will be following those guidelines.
Right. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Are there other questions for Joya? We can just, even if she doesn't feel like she's the expert on the updated mask guidance, we can ask her questions. She'll act as our foil. She says no. Okay, that sounds great. Well, thank you for getting us started. I really appreciate it.
I'll take a question. I'll answer it if I have the answer. If I don't, I'll tell you I don't, and I'll go look it up.
That sounds great. I think one of the things that was when I was, in another Zoom call and looking at Twitter at the same time about the mask guidance, it seemed like the OHA was not providing even suggestions for how a business might verify. But they said that if you're going to have people who are vaccinated unmasked in your space, you have to verify. But they didn't provide any guidance as far as what that would look like. And I feel like that's a pretty big failing. So it sure seems like continuing on with masks for everyone is probably the best and fairest solution going forward, even though I recognize how hard that is for honestly everybody.
May I speak? I'm sorry.
Please, yes. And I was going to ask Takesha because she had great comments in the chat from our Friday meeting.
Yeah. TK, why don't you go ahead and share your thoughts, and then I'll hold mine to share.
Sure. Is it Friday? Wow. That somehow just seems like so far away, but so close. What I've been hearing is a lot of what everyone's been echoing is how do you enforce this? And after, the last year and a half of it feeling like, people are at war with each other, this seems so divisive that there's just worries, are people going to lose customers? Is there a way to do it that they don't lose customers one way or the other? It just seems like there's not a good answer. Although I do agree that it seems like going forward, just having everyone, it's safest. It seems like just having everyone do it. And, once we reach that 70% or whatever, to have it not happen anymore. But that was the main concern, is not wanting to be the vaccine police, and then that this was going to cause divisiveness. We're talking about Sheridan, small town, also like Representative Gomber was talking about the coast. You have, one person working at a business, it's kind of easy to look over and see if they're wearing a mask, but what do you do when you're like, take out your papers and your purse, and like, how does that work? It just, I don't think it works. So, that was what I was hearing.
Okay, great. Thank you for sharing that. And I should note that, so we're referring to that on Friday morning, I woke up and I was really worried about our businesses and how their frontline staff were going to deal with this new guidance or lack of guidance. And so we got, Joya, TK, I invited Josh Duder. I get Jody Christensen was there, and we had like 75 business owners who came together to kind of share their concerns and get questions answered as best they could from Jody. And Jody did a great job of navigating what she knew and what she didn't know, even though that was not satisfactory to many people. Because at this point, the governor's guidance was essentially, if there's a legal question, we're not giving you an answer. It's up to your lawyer, which going into the weekend is really hard.
It doesn't seem like
nobody's
is resolved either. It's not really. It's not. I mean, at least it wasn't clear to me.
Yeah, no, it wasn't clear at the time. The Oregonian, I might know, I haven't read the article, but the Oregonian just published a primer on, can a business ask a customer whether they're vaccinated or not, and does that question and answer violate HIPAA? And their conclusion from what I saw was that no, it doesn't, which was my understanding. But the governor's office doesn't want to tell you as a business owner something that's going to go against what your lawyer might say.
Yeah. Right. And I don't know that a small business is going to want to go against part of their, town or whatever. It just puts them in such a terrible spot.
Yeah, I agree. That's what I've seen. Okay, great. Thank you for weighing in. That I appreciate it. And then I'm going to stick with the business folks and go to Abhisha. And Abhisha, feel free to share, what you're working on, what people in the community might want to know, but also what you've been hearing from businesses and from workers as well. Because again, people on the front lines are the people most affected by the immediate changes in guidance, even though the business itself long-term is the organization that, benefits or suffers.
Yeah, thank you so much, Commissioner. So most of what I'm spending my time on these days is workforce development projects. As you all have heard me talk about Project Oasis, our childcare project, being a workforce development project, we have several childcare programs that are trying to either spring up a new location or expand. We currently are working, or when I say we, I mean SEDCOR is currently working with Shemeketa on a training program for hospitality. There's a big need, right, for employees in hospitality for many of the reasons that Joya and Takesha were just sharing. In addition to people maybe needing to stay home because of childcare related issues, there is still a very clear concern coming from our currently displaced workers about returning to work in a retail setting and being exposed to hostility or confusion about all of the changing rules, or even for some folks, potential exposure to the virus. So this is a big issue, a big concern. We have several businesses in the hospitality realm reporting to us that we have a hotel, a great example, who is only operating at 50% capacity on the weekends and 20% capacity during the week because they can't get enough employees to effectively run their facility, right? So this is clearly an employee-related issue at this point. So we are working on a lot of workforce development training programs. The one that we're partnering with Shemeketa on also has a childcare component so that folks have access to childcare, would have access to food, would have access to culturally informed training programs as they go through the hospitality program. And then we're trying to create a conjoined program for a certificate training program for childcare service providers. So it's a conjoined kind of hybridized program. We're looking to do that in a few other areas. We have some industrial sewers in our region who are trying to put together an industrial sewing workforce development project. And it looks like all of those programs are going to require some amount of attention to providing childcare, transportation, food, whatever those additional barriers are to help encourage folks to participate in the programs. We do have a lot of new businesses that have been making inquiries about coming into the area. There is still a transition out of the Portland area for businesses. There is a lot of concern about lack of access to industrial properties. Cost of property is still very high. So even though folks are looking to our region, to be honest with you, there's a lot of them that are having to look around Yamhill County because of lack of housing, lack of affordable housing, and lack of industrial land. So those are really the big three. Because industrial land supply is so low, that's why costs are much higher. So we are on average close to 25% higher per square foot for industrial property than other rural parts of the 3-county area. So that's pretty significant. Gosh, there was one other thing I wanted to share. Okay, so some of our manufacturing business owners, the things that are really high on their mind outside of workforce is that there is a real concern about transitory hyperinflation, right? With kind of the market doing what it's doing and a lot of funds currently moving throughout these various different programs. Supply of materials for supply chains, especially coming out of China, are still very, very stretched. So we're seeing the cost of wood continue to increase. That's something that we as retail consumers can easily see that we can kind of relate to. I'm doing a home remodeling project myself, and it's a different one, Commissioner Kula, not the one that I was doing last year.
I'm so glad you're done with that one.
Yeah, working from home has me doing a lot of projects. But so we can see that. We have access to that. What we can't see and don't have access to is all of the components that a manufacturing company might utilize to build a finished product that we purchase. Every single one of those pieces of material are facing some sort of issue in the supply chain. It could be a lack of available supply, it could be super long lead times, or it could be heightened cost, right? But I have yet to hear of one sort of material that doesn't have some impact attached to it. That causes costs to go up, cost to consumers to go up, right? And so when folks are talking about this concern about transitory hyperinflation, this is why. And our business owners, have access to a lot of that foresight, because most of them are bringing products in from out of the state, from out of the country, and so they're part of that global economy that's maybe 3 or 4 steps ahead of the general retail consumer like us. So that's what they're concerned about. That's what they're reaching out about. We do have some of our manufacturing partners and our producers who are pursuing debt currently because of low interest rates and concern about kind of what the value of the dollar is going to do. So we're seeing businesses taking on more debt right now. But still, that number one concern is lack of employees.
Well, thank you, Abisha. It looks like Joya had a question, and then I have like a couple of snarky comments. So we'll go to.
You can go with
Joya
your snarky
first.
comments if you'd like. I'll wait.
I was just gonna note that an offering of childcare along with childcare education and certification seems really awesome to me. So it's not really that snarky, but it seems like what a great combination, right? The other comment I wanted to make was, how does, speaking of Councillor Finley, how does the Newberg industrial property fit into that? Because it seems like all of a sudden there's a lot of industrial land available there.
That is a very good question. So we actually talked a lot about that last night at council. So we have started to dive into UGB expansion and what that looks like. And it is, as most of you know, it's like a puzzle and dominoes at the same time. So where do we put the pieces that don't make everything fall down? So how do we look at land where we can see where we can put some industrial, but not have it interfere if we know there's going to be residential in those places, and vice versa. So we actually started really talking about that last night, and we kind of dove into that. If anybody is really interested, I know it's not riveting for a lot of people, but you can watch our council meeting and just fast forward to that area where there's some stats given about that, and Doug goes into detail about those areas around Newberg where we can access some of that land. But in terms of that riverfront property, it's sort of up in the air right now. I mean, it's certainly industrial property right now, but it doesn't fit into the UGB at this point. And Doug is much more eloquent and succinct about it, but that is something that's sort of separate when we're looking at available lands. But we do know that we for sure have a need for a lot more industrial, a lot more residential, and a lot more commercial. And we just have to figure out where we can put it. And we don't have a lot of available land right now. And so that's why we're starting to talk about that UGB. Does that sort of answer it?
Yeah, so it's complicated, I think.
It's very complicated.
Is what I heard. The fact that it's mostly out in the county also complicates it, I suppose. Yeah. Especially since they need services that are provided by the city for most industrial businesses there. Yeah.
Yes.
I received an email, something about how George Fox wants to develop down the riverfront too. Which made me think Doug probably would have liked to hear that 2 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, that's a hot spot, right? It's going to be a place where people are going to want to go. I mean, if I were a business owner or if I was doing something fun, residential and things like that, I'd be going there because I think that's really the place to be. We also did do some work on vertical housing last night at council. And so, it's like one of the little pieces that hopefully fits into the puzzle to make things better all around. But we did do some stuff on vertical housing last night that will just shift just a tiny bit, but hopefully just enough that all those other pieces together make some real movement.
Excellent. I've listened to so many presentations from Patrick Davenport about vertical housing that I won't watch that part. And I just want to go back. Joya, Joya was going to ask a question of Abhisha, and I derailed it with the industrial land question. So
I might have forgotten what my question was. I'm sorry. I got a phone call, and it'll come back around again. It'll come back.
No worries. And I think Commissioner Kula probably needs a lesson on how to be snarky, because I don't think that
wasn't
the least bit snarky, but
yeah.
I think it's great that you referred to it as that. I also wanted to share in regards to the riverfront and millsite property in the city of Newberg. I think that the city of Newberg has done a fabulous job on kind of approaching that in advance of the sale of that property and creating a riverfront master plan. And I think Doug Rux and the team, right, deserve a lot of credit for having done that, including city council. But that really does put the city of Newberg in a good position for being prepared for use of that property. And what industrial land does exist there. I mean, we're working with the current owners, working very closely with the city, with the current owners. That piece of property is like, the last bite of meat on a steak bone before you throw it to the dog, right? Like everyone is like, what is possible with that property? So it is exciting. It is a bright spot, but to be honest, for Yamhill County, in terms of continued industrial growth, it is not enough.
Got it. Thank you for that perspective. And also baseball park. And I'm still working on it, even though they said they're going to put it in downtown Portland. Still working on it. Along those lines, though, Abhisha, I wanted to ask, and TK is here as well. So Sheridan and Willamina seem like they have significant chunks of industrial land. What are the barriers?
I have some initial comments, if you'd like me to start, TK. Some of the barriers are that some of that land sits with folks that don't want to sell it. Some of that land is in a flood zone and is not shovel ready or certifiable shovel ready. And so there's a lot of work that needs to be done to get it there. Industrial buyers, as they come in, they want shovel ready, certifiable, ready, prepared land. They want it to be listed with an actual price, right? So a lot of the land out in the county and in Sheridan and some of those spaces are owned in a family trust. They're in a flood zone. They're not the least bit prepared to be sold. And it takes a lot of work to get that ready. And so I did share with the Board of Commissioners that there are opportunities out there, but a huge amount of work really needs to be done to go into getting them ready. Then, of course, you have a lot of our industrial partners want proximity to rail, proximity to I-5, so there are some of those requirements. Those that don't need that, though, I would love to be able to direct them to some shovel-ready industrial properties in Sheridan, if they existed.
Okay, thank you for that perspective. I don't know, Takesha, do you want to add anything? It was intended for Abhisha, but you have your own insights.
I would say that she's pretty much echoed what I understand. You helped with the Forest River property, but I think that was the most ready, available property that I know. So eventually, I think there might be some, but I just don't know of any that are close to it at this point.
Yeah, there's one other property out there that we've been working pretty hard to find a good buyer for, but there's a building on it, there's stuff in the building. It's kind of a complicated sale, and so you need the right buyer.
And from what I recall, too, there's at least a couple of parcels on the west side of Sheridan where there's not enough fire water to provide adequate protection for a property.
That's a really good point. Availability of water is a really big deal. We have a pretty significant project that was citing a smaller town in Marion County, and the project partner was very eager to move forward, and we kind of had to put the brakes on it and say, your daily water demand is more than the city has rights to provide for the whole city. So that's a big halt, right?
Okay, thank you for that perspective. Both of you, I appreciate it. Unless there are other questions for Abhishek, I'm going to ask Al what they would like to share with us on behalf of Congresswoman Bonamici. Sounds good? Okay, Al, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm happy to be back. It's been a bit. I've been quite busy for the past couple weeks. So I'm going to talk not about coronavirus for the first time in a long time, I think. The House recently had two opportunities for Congresswoman Bonamici to advocate for funding for projects in the district. The processes were different. They're separate processes, but both of them allowed her to advocate for specific community needs that will deliver direct federal sources to the district. I'm going to talk a little bit about each of them, and then if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer them. It's a little confusing because both processes happened at the same time, which is also why I was not on these meetings for a couple of weeks. But the first one that happened is the member designated projects. So this happened in the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, and the Congresswoman had about $15 to $20 million to recommend for projects in her district. So she recommended 9 transportation projects in CD1 that to receive federal funding as part of the Surface Transportation Reauthorization that's expected to advance later this year. Of those 9 projects, the project in Yamhill County that she recommended to advance is the Newberg Dundee bypass. So she recommended $8 million for the Newberg Dundee bypass to be included in that surface transportation bill. The projects are currently being reviewed by the committee, and we will hope to learn more. I want to say by summer. I'll say summer because that gives me a little bit more of a safety net there. I'd like to thank Commissioner Kulo for being on many calls with me while we navigated that process. But the Congresswoman is really excited to be able to put that project forward. She knows how important Newberg Dundee bypass is for the district. She's been a long-time champion of the project and was very excited to be able to put that one forward. Questions on that before I move to community project funding, which is a little bit more in depth? Okay. All right. So also in April, we had community project funding, which happened in the Appropriations Committee, and within this committee, each representative was given the opportunity to request funding for up to 10 projects. They're projects that funding had to be allocated for fiscal year 2022. It was a very competitive process. Our office alone received 70 applications for those 10 spots. The Congresswoman had some very difficult decisions to make. She prioritized projects that had clear job creation, economic recovery focus, emphasized equity and meeting the needs of underserved communities, and also represented regional diversity of the district. So in Yamhill County, the project that she recommended to advance is the Newberg Clinic expansion that was submitted by Virginia Garcia. Which is a very exciting $2.12 million for that clinic expansion. The Congresswoman has always appreciated the critical role that Virginia Garcia plays in delivering care to underserved communities. And as we all know, the pandemic has made that even more clear. So that one. So just to clarify, for both of these projects, that is, she's recommended them to the committees. The funding doesn't exist yet, and we'll see in the next couple months which projects move forward. For this one, the committee anticipates holding markup in May and June, and the bill should advance to the floor June, July. So for both these processes, the Congresswoman's going to continue to work with House leadership in both committees to do what she can to continue to support these projects and make sure that they're included in each final version of the bill. So that was a really fun, busy, but really exciting couple weeks in our office. Congresswoman really enjoyed the opportunity to connect with so many organizations and local leaders who are doing a lot of work in the state and in the district, and hearing of all these projects. Of those, she was only able to recommend 10 projects to move forward in the community project funding process, but we got 70 really strong applications and are connecting with those organizations to see what other federal funding exists. And it was just a really great opportunity to really connect with folks and learn about the amazing projects happening in the district.
That's awesome. Thank you, Al. I think it was really a helpful exercise for a lot of these organizations to be like, okay, this is what we have. This is what we can ask for. Because now internally with the county, we can look at them too. The state can look at them. I see it as a very helpful thing, even for the folks who don't have their projects recommended.
Yeah.
I did want to note too that there's a great connection between Virginia Garcia's remodeling of their space and expansion and Yamhill County, because right now we share spaces side by side in the building, but Yamhill County is purchasing their own building separate from it, because it's been a long time need of both organizations to expand their offerings in Newberg. And so we're planning to move into our own building, and having this opportunity then is just so great. So thank you. And thank you to Congresswoman for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll pass that along.
Are there any questions or comments for Al?
Can I just say one more thing while folks can decide if they have questions? But I just want to say, I know this process came, I think we learned mid-March maybe that this was the community project funding, which used to be known as earmarks, was going to be back in Congress, and applications closed between the 28th and the 30th. So it was a really quick turnaround, a really quick process. Our office did all that we can to connect with folks, and it was also offered on a limited scope. But I want you all to know now that this is most likely going to happen again next year. And so start thinking, look at what information, I'll link to it on the website, but look at those guidelines that exist for this year. It might change next year, but I think we're hopeful that this will continue to happen over the next couple of years. So the more everyone can do to prepare and see how their projects can fit into this funding opportunity, the better.
Great, that's a really good point, Al. One of the projects that was submitted to you all was the Newberg Dundee bypass trail that Shayham Parks and Rec is trying to build, and they just got confirmation that the ODOT is funding their first phase, or at least the non-local match. So thanks, Stephanie Finley, for being part of that local match. But it seems like a great opportunity for them to apply for future phases. Are there any other questions or comments? And West Valley needs to, we need to work on some requests from there, since it's a lot of East County stuff right now. Okay, thank you very much, Al. And I'm going to go to Councillor Finley now on behalf of the City of Newberg. What more would you like to share with people? You got a little nuggets of knowledge in here, but...
Sure. So I actually did have UGB on my list to talk about, so we got rid of that, which was good. But yes, so if you're interested in hearing about the troubles with UGB, tune in to our council meeting. We have wrapped up the budget committee for Newberg. I'm really excited about that. It was a very good process this year. And I'm really excited that we added some really great positions to further along our DEI goals. And so one of those that we're particularly proud of is that we are going to add a senior librarian that is Spanish speaking. And so we're really adding a big position to the library, not just, a part-time or we hope you speak Spanish, but that we're really focused on having a senior librarian that is Spanish speaking. So the budget isn't, of course, done until it gets presented to the council and goes through council, but the budget committee's work at this point is done. And we are glad about that because it takes a lot of time. Thank you to our piecemeal finance department. So that takes me to the next thing. We have a ton of open recruitments right now. So if you know someone or are someone that is looking for work, please go to our website. We're looking for a finance manager. We're looking for a housing planner. We've got some big things on our list that we really need to fill to move some things along. Our finance department was decimated just prior to budget season. So we kind of cobbled it along, but we're really looking to add to that team. So lots of recruitments. There's other smaller recruitments, but lots there to see. Library, for our library, they're doing a May reading challenge and they're celebrating PI authors. And so we're really excited that the library has continued to do such good work in our community, even with COVID. They have worked so hard to bring as many services possible to people during this time, even when people can't be in the library. So they have some great stuff going on. So I really encourage people to go look at our library's information, their social media, website, things like that, because you'll get a good idea of what they're doing for our community. And then the last thing is we just really want to encourage people to get out and get vaccinated. We have several vaccination clinics coming up in the coming weeks at schools and other places around Newberg. But we really want to keep our community safe. We really want people to patronize our small businesses and for our small businesses to not feel like they're getting the brunt of the newest information coming out. So we're really just encouraging people to come out and get vaccinated. We've been really successful. I think Elise told us last night that this past weekend at the drive-through ADAC, they vaccinated 1,500 people. And so people are really coming, but we're not running into a shortage of vaccinations like we were. We have vaccinations. We need people to come and get them so that we can be out in the community and seeing each other. So if you know someone that needs a vaccination, please don't hesitate to contact one of your local leaders. If they don't know how to do it for you, they know someone who can help you with that and get you to the place that you need to be or get a vaccination to you. So that is my plug, because we want to see Newberg in person with everybody's full faces soon, and vaccinations are the way to do it.
Awesome. Thank you, Councillor Finley. And I do want to note that last week we heard about the very successful library vaccination clinic. So that was pretty exciting. All right. Are there questions for Councillor Finley? Great. Thank you very much for joining us. And thank you for the plug for vaccinations. And then Mayor Linda Watkins from the city of Carleton, what would you like to share with people today?
First, we have to remember to unmute. Yeah, I know. I'm getting there. It's been a busy week around here, but mainly we've just been watching with the weather, the gorgeous weather. People have been out and about. This weekend, I walked through our lower park, the Winterberg Park, and every single, not that we have that many, but every single one of our picnic shelters was packed. There were people camping, just out in the middle of the field. It was really lovely to see, actually. It was really nice to see. The weather was great. Everybody was being good. And I'm so grateful that we have that, where we can have people getting together outdoors and keep them outside. I haven't heard too much from our businesses, so I don't know how they're dealing with the new guidance. That's obviously a concern. We're done with our budget. well, the council hasn't passed it yet, but we got through the budget hearing with no fireworks. So that's always a good thing. And I think mainly what we were doing for the last week was just scrambling, trying to catch up with the congressional opportunities for trying to get some financing and see if we can find some grants and some help to get our sewer system done. And that's been pretty much that was our big focus last week with a new city manager and basically virtually new city council. It was a scramble. So that's been pretty much our focus, but today's kind of a little bit cooler, but yeah, the weekend was lovely. It was just great. So that's it.
It rained here on the farm a few minutes ago. Rain.
Yeah, it did here this morning too. It's
just like, did it rain here? No, maybe it didn't.
Yeah. No,
now it's gorgeous though.
Yeah, I got caught walking the dog. I was heading home and I was about 3 blocks from home and it hit and we were running. So, but yeah. Anyway, that's it.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Are there questions or comments from the mayor?
Yeah, I have a question. I think you answered it, Mayor Watkins, but last I heard you hadn't hired a city manager yet. It sounds like you did. Could you send me their contact information just so I can connect with them?
Absolutely. In fact, I had a note down here that I had written as you were speaking, saying that we need to get, her name is Shannon Beaucaire. She was the city manager down at Yachats.
Great.
But I will have her, I'm going to be making a point of having her get in touch with you.
Great. Yeah, I'd love to connection. That sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. And then I realized while we were on our circuit of business leaders that Takesha, I asked you questions, you never got to give your own just like update to the community. So Takesha Wydrow.
Okay, I just have a brief correction of what I had said last time because I found that I was slightly in error on the I said that during the hometown days in June, the Saturday market would be happening at the hometown days. It's actually not correct. It is happening on the first Saturday in June. And that they're going to be using that same location for a beer garden and a band on the hometown days. So I just want to clarify that point, but they're getting ready and we're all excited to have some kind of event, outside events again. That's all.
And no masks.
And no masks outside, yeah.
You don't even have to ask them their status.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. And Howie Harkamat. Oh, are there questions from Takesha? Howie Harkamat, what would you like to share with people today?
Well, we just had our Encompass Yamhill Valley board meeting last night, and there's a number of things that I'd like to talk about. We're working on finding a way to present Sunday meals in McMinnville because there aren't any currently. There's a number of things being discussed right now, and I will let you know as I know what we end up doing. It sounds like maybe the library might be the location that we distribute the meals from. We're also going to be asking other nonprofits and such and churches to donate food and assist us. We have found a location where there is a commercial kitchen. One is $19 an hour, I believe, and the other one is free. Guess which one we're going to choose? The other thing that we also discussed was a lot of people that are homeless or living in their cars or vehicles don't have the money to fix their vehicles as they break down. So we're trying to figure out how we could fund and assist in keeping their cars running through grants or other means to keep people so they can transport themselves to and from locations and not be stuck in one place and then get an impound charge that they'll never be able to pay. Anything else that you want to bring up, Casey, because you were there too?
I think I'm okay. Thank you, Howie. It's better coming from you since you lead the meetings. Abhishek has a question for you, though.
Yes, Abhishek.
Well, and Howie, I'm just so impressed with the folks that are supporting this effort and the work that y'all are doing. And I think the way that, you're kind of looking at how do we help folks with the vehicles that currently is where they reside and also is their transportation. And so I'm hoping that as you're pursuing funding, you're looking at opportunities that are just around transportation and transportation to and from work and to and from doctors' appointments. I think that there's an opportunity there for funding. And I've connected with Carrie Martin and heard a little bit more about the programs that y'all are working on, but I am so inspired by the work that you're doing that I'm trying to keep my ear to the wall about potential funding for y'all. So I just want to say thank you.
Thank you. Yes, we're going to be working with YCCO and a number of other nonprofits to see what we can do to better serve our marginalized fellow human beings in Yamhill County, period.
Great. Thank you very much, Howie. And thank you for keeping Encompass top of mind for these things. Appreciate it. It's part of making the community better, right? Yeah. I do want to know, we were talking about mask guidance and vaccinated status and unvaccinated status, and I did see that the Enchanted Forest was planning to open, which is deep memories, like in my body. I can smell and feel how it's like kind of wet in the corners of things. But they chose to close down because they got so much upset and anger around how to just manage all of it, right? And I totally get that. Like, I don't want to be in the position where I'm trying to manage all those different expectations. So that's one of the hard things that happens. I do want to note that I'm going to run out the clock a few minutes here because our clerk Van Bergen is coming on to is joining the show right now to put in a plug for the elections day right now. So we'll give it a second. He'll show up. He's going to turn on his camera and his microphone and remind us that it's really time to vote. Welcome, Clerk Van Bergen.
Well, thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Sorry for being so late. And it is time to vote. It's just hours away from, as we're on this call, it's just after 4 o'clock on election day. So folks have just under 4 hours to get their ballot in. And as Commissioner Kula and I were talking about earlier together today, we have 16 official drop boxes in Yamhill County that folks could use. But if you find yourself or someone finds yourself in another county in Oregon, your ballot just needs to be in the hands of a clerk or in an official drop box. It doesn't have to be in your precinct's drop box. It doesn't have to be right next to your house. It just has to be in the possession of one of the clerks in the state. So that's one of the things we like to remind people in case they're at work and they have their ballot in their car, and we just need you to get that into one of the boxes after you sign it. Sorry. That's the other thing we like to remind people.
Those are all really good points. Thank you. But not in a mailbox.
Way too late to mail back your ballot. Yeah, it's one of those things that's really hard to get in the minds of folks that just moved here from Washington State or California or some of the states that allow ballots that were mailed by election day. Oregon does not. Yeah, we have to have physical possession of the ballots by 8 p.m. on election night here in Oregon.
Awesome. Thank you. Is there anything else that we need to know about election day here?
Lots going on, but not measures in Yamhill County this time. Lots of candidates from one end of the county to the other. Not a lot from the measures perspective. So lots of names on the ballot. One of the things that folks are often confused about is why so many names in the voter pamphlet they get. And we try to do a single voter pamphlet that works for everyone in the county. So it's just one of those things that also, if you're new to Oregon elections, that's one of the things we do a little differently here, but it's one thing that some people don't do at all, so we try to make a happy medium there.
And I frankly was very surprised when I learned that there are places that don't have that paper thing. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah, our neighbors in Polk County don't do it at all. So yeah, it's yeah. Here we are.
And one of the things that I think I've heard questions about is, when there's multiple candidates and there's different positions, sometimes people get confused, but I often just direct them back to the ballot. Like, if you're confused about what's in the voters pamphlet, just look at the ballot and it'll give you more clarity around, especially school board races where sometimes it's by position and sometimes you just vote for the people.
Yeah, it's one of those things that it may seem straightforward to those of us that have done it over and over and over again, but some of the contests, like you were just saying, some of them are a vote for just one, some of them are a vote for two, some of them are a vote for three. So if you're in the McMinnville area just outside of town, you're going to have a contest where you're voting for two for the McMinnville Fire Board. So it's one of those things that's a little weird for some people. And then we also list on our ballot the number of years that the contest is for. So Fire Board would serve for 4 years. And so you see a race like the Chehalem Park and Rec, and you see 12 people, and you see the word four. So we've unfortunately had a number of people vote for 4 people when it's a 4-year contest. So we try to be super clear, but some people get confused by those words. So we try to be helpful, but sometimes that helpfulness backfires on us.
And then I know that you and I both got a question early on, just after ballots had arrived in people's mailboxes, because somebody didn't realize that a candidate had dropped out of the race. And you and I got to clarify a couple of things, that once it's in the mail or once it's in the drop box, that's it, right? No corrections. But there's a window of time when you can change things, right?
As long as the voter still has the ballot in their hand, the voter can make a change on their ballot. So if you've marked the vote for Howie Harkema, and then you say, Howie just said you down at the coffee shop, I don't want to run anymore. You can, while you still have that ballot in your hands, you could cross that off and then vote for the next person, and we'll get that taken care of here in our office. But if Steph voted for Howie and then she changed her mind after she mailed it or dropped it in our drop box, in Oregon we're vote by mail, so the mailbox becomes the ballot box. So you've cast your ballot as soon as you've mailed it or dropped it off. And that's the key phrase. If you've cast your ballot, that is your last chance.
And then there's a way, thank you. And then there's a way to get a replacement ballot too, right? There's something called, it's maybe I'm not using the right word.
It is the right, yeah, there are 2 different paths. You can get a reissue or a replacement depending on your situation. If you've moved or if you spilled your spaghetti on yours, there's all sorts of options for you. So you can get those, but here we are 4 hours from the end. If you find yourself in that spot, you really physically need to get yourself to your local elections office to get your replacement.
Great, thank you. And I'm so grateful that you know all these details and I just get to ask you them. Thank you. Howie has a question for you.
I do.
About his run.
Congratulations, Howie.
How many people forget to sign their ballots?
A shockingly large number. Yeah. We send out a notice to those folks as soon as we get them and as soon as we've checked the signature. So those go in 2 different directions. Those folks that forgot to sign get 1 piece of correspondence, and that piece of correspondence includes an affidavit where the person could sign and send back to us, and that can cure that problem. The other set of correspondence are those that where the signature doesn't match. So there's all sorts of options, and we're talking hundreds of people per election in just our county that fall into that bucket. So it's unfortunate, but it's also good to remember that in Oregon you have 2 weeks after the election. So if you're one of those good folks that make us happy and voted 2 weeks ago and forgot to sign, and here we are on election day, you still have 2 weeks after the election. So you almost have a month to cure your signature issue, whatever it is, if you're early voter. So regardless, the cutoff date is June 1st to cure your signature issue.
Great, thank you. Howie, did they answer your question?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, I feel like we need to get this all up onto the YouTube channel before, before 8 o'clock tonight, too. Note to selves. Any other questions for the clerk? Awesome. It is so great to have you on. Thank you. I was just wrapping up and I was about to say, remember it's election day, but you gave us a lot more details than I possibly could have.
Well, thank you for letting me chime in.
Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah. Oh, does Linda have a question?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Mayor?
Well, no, and once again, it's not a question. It's just that I want to say thank you. And we so much appreciate you being our clerk.
Thank you.
It's just, we're a very lucky county.
Well, we have great people here. It's we have the folks right in our back office right now are doing great work, and they're a joy to work with. So I'm really happy to do it.
And I voted early.
Yay! Even better.
Thanks.
I voted medium, and I voted for the candidate because there were no contested ballots, right? Or there were no contested elections. Okay. Are there any other comments for the clerk? All right. Well, thank you all for joining us again today. I do want to note that we continue to have new doses going into our county, and so we're getting closer to that 65% mark. But I do think that we will probably, as a state, hit the 70% mark just based upon what I'm seeing, than the 65. And we will see what that means. There's not clear guidance yet as far as majority restrictions lifted, but I think we can all have some ideas about what that looks like. So, Howie, do you have a comment on that?
I have a question. Has it been thought of to set up a database to be able to verify the people who have had their shots?
Well, I know that each county receives notice when somebody has received their vaccine, because that's how we know, even though people go to the Oregon Convention Center, that they're a Yamhill County resident and that dose counts for Yamhill County. The Oregon Health Authority has not issued any kind of guidance around how they might or might not use that information. And again, I think that's really, really verging on the Oregon Health Authority as at least a quasi-medical provider sharing information about somebody's medical status. So that's one that I really don't know about. I think it might be getting close to not appropriate.
Well, the reason I ask is because of the question that came up by Joya about the false documentation of your COVID cards and a way to verify who actually has had them.
Right, that's a really good point. Yes, and I don't know. I do know that it's a fairly hefty penalty, fine. I don't know if it's technically a crime. I think it might be a crime to falsify a medical document. So that in and of itself is like a fairly serious thing, and it hopefully would be a deterrent if people knew that.
Thank you.
And then Mayor Watkins has a comment or question too.
No, I was just responding to Howie's comment. I would have to think that could be pretty close to a HIPAA violation to make those names public. I don't know exactly how you do it, but I think you're skating on real thin ice on that one. I wouldn't want to touch it.
Yes, but I do see Howie's point about the difference between true records and falsified records. But I think in this case, just because if you're falsifying a medical record, that's a really big deal on its own.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But it's just...
Bergen knows that it's a big deal to falsify records because he is the repository for all official, land records, for example. It's really, really important to have correct records. Yes. Okay, sorry, Mayor, you were saying something more.
Well, I wasn't really. I'm trying to get rid of the raise hand, and I can't figure out how to do it.
I bet I can do that.
Okay.
I'm happy to close us. Thank you for being here a little bit later. We got a lot of good information from the knowledgeable folks here. So thank you. And remember, there are pop-up vaccine clinics all over the county, and they're safe. My arm is no longer sore. And thank you for joining us today. And remember to turn in your ballot at an official drop box. All right, see you, everybody. We will see you next week.